Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode on the Agency Hacker podcast. I'm Lance Johnson, one of the coaches here at Agency Hacker, and I'm here today with Corbitt Chandler. He's a business coach, founder and CPO of Apex Current, and a guy with a really interesting story. Corbitt, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Lance. I'm excited to be here, man.
Yeah, great to have you. So we were chatting a little bit beforehand. I feel like I'm just chomping at the bit to get the episode started and hear more from you. But tell us a little bit about what Apex Current does.
Yeah, so Apex Current, I founded it in 2017, and we're a performance-driven digital ad agency. So everything we do is based on driving tangible results for our clients. So if you're a mobile app company and you're trying to drive app installs, or you're an e-commerce business, you're trying to drive online sales or orders, or you need qualified leads for like your local service business. And we work with businesses really of all shapes and sizes, but probably our smallest businesses are somewhere between 3 and 5 million annually, just because of the way we set up our structure and the clients we work with, but all types and sizes for sure.
That's fascinating. Do you guys have a specific platform that you focus in on, or is it really cross-platform?
Yeah, it's cross-platform these days. You've got to be. We've got to go where the brand's buyer is, right? And so whatever platform that buyer's on, we can optimize ads, and with machine learning and the algorithms that are built into these platforms, you can optimize for these conversions. But I cut my teeth on Facebook. That's what I learned. And so when I started, that's really what I was doing. But I realized quickly, one, that Facebook's not an end all be all, right? If you think about it as a hierarchy, Google, even if you look at their ad revenue, is much larger than Facebook, right? They're doing like 120 billion a year in ad revenue. Facebook's like 40, 50 billion. But people, like, you don't have a Facebook account, which half the world does. But if you don't have a Facebook account, you're going on Google to get there, right? To look for Facebook to sign on or create an account. And so anyways, so we got Google, and search intent is a big part of the business, right? As far as people looking for that shoe or whatever that item is out there, and then retargeting on social media networks. But we're on all of them, and all the major ones, and probably ones you haven't heard of, third platforms.
That's really fun. I'm curious now of like what are the secret ad networks out there?
Well, they're third-party buyers, So there's one called Criteo that's like a $5 billion company, and they're buying remnant space basically.
Yeah. No, that makes so sense. I think there was like Site Scout back in the day or something that was
Sure.
like a real early remnant media thing. It's like, this is sweet. Impressions are so cheap, but
Right. It's
so
just
how
got to work. It's just got to work. I mean, we look. So I can compare what I do at my agency to day trading, and so the difference is it's New York Stock Exchange. It's at business hours, right? We don't close, right? We don't close at 5 p.m. And if ads are running over holidays, Christmas, whatever it is, and they're not working, we've got to get in there and change them and make them work for our client.
Yeah, that's the work-life balance thing is difficult when
Yeah.
you have. It's like holidays are a wonderful time. What's that?
Especially on the performance side,
Yeah.
when your goal is results, and you've committed to driving some sort of return for your client, a tangible return. You got to make sure their money's being spent well, and it's driving whatever result they need.
Yeah. I feel like even just from an integrity side, where it's like, my background was direct response marketing as well. I'm like, man,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to deliver what I said I was going to deliver, and it is frequently not easy. Where
Now I want to pick your brain, since you said your background is direct response, because we didn't, before we jumped on, we didn't get to cover that part. That's awesome. I love it. I call what I do brand response. So it's like a marriage between the brand side and the direct response side, right? And finding this sort of happy balance, but making sure whichever way it leans, it's effective.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. We actually had a guy, Tim. Oh, what was Tim's last name? He had a very similar model for health and beauty brands.
Okay.
Mainly beauty brands. Where I hadn't. I actually don't know that much about branding, and so it's always a little bit of a black box. And it's cool to see it starting to merge a little bit, because it feels like it's a time horizon difference. That a direct response company they want shorter ROI terms, and a brand response seems like they are willing to stretch out. They need to build the brand profitably, but I don't know. Tell us a little bit about brand response, because it's
Yeah, sure. Well, and you got even more technical than maybe how I feel about it. But I worked on the big brand side for 15 years, was the VP of marketing for a major franchise brand, right? When I kind of stepped out and decided to do my own thing and start Apex in 2017. And so there's that background and experience there of building a brand and working for big brands and sort of honoring the sanctity of what it is. But then there's also, so you've got all this, right, which is like what the CEO wants or whatever it is, your brand style guide and branding and all of that, and trying to kind of build that name recognition. But then on the other side, you've got what's effective, direct response, right? Like stepping inside the mind of the buyer, right? And figuring out what their wants and needs are. And I mean, I tell clients all the time, I don't care what how you feel or what you think. I'm showing you what the data says, right? So your brand color might be blue, or you might want this button to be blue, but green is what the market data is showing us converts. So I can make it blue, but this is where the results are, and so that's kind of the marriage, figuring out how that all works together.
Yeah, so you're kind of like doing hostage negotiation where like the hostage is the results and
Mm-hmm.
then like the terrorist is the brand. No, I'm just kidding.
Sometimes maybe.
Yeah. No, I think that brand managers actually often have like a really good long-term view of things. And they're
Sure.
like, hey, we're really strategic, but it's the opinion game can be really hard when someone's like, my opinion is I like blue more. You're like, that's totally reasonable.
Yep.
And you're not the customer. So do you want to get your preference or do you want to get your bonus? Because those two things don't always go together.
Well, and as it's been said, buyers are liars too. So I've been in situations where they might survey some customers, but then again, in the marketplace or when someone's on their phone by themselves or on their computer shopping, looking for a product or service, they respond and react differently than they do in any sort of quantifiable, scenario.
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. Actions don't lie. Right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Well, it sounds like a super interesting background. You started at a major franchise, you're VP of marketing, and what happened, right? How did you get here?
Yeah, yeah. So my sort of story has been shared. It's a big part of, I mean, why I'm where I'm at now. But like I said, corporate America for 15 years. But in 2016, I got viral meningitis. I was in the ICU with 104-degree fever. So had a week stay in the ICU at Brookwood Hospital in Birmingham, Alabama, and almost died. And that came out of that and really struggled, man. Struggled with kind of what my why was and purpose and what I was doing. And this is when I was the VP of marketing for this major franchise brand. And so through that, I come back to work and I'm at the office and I'm like, I don't have a trade. I'm just, kind of like, what's my value? What's the worth that I'm bringing? And decided just to start saying yes to opportunities. And that company ended up bringing on a consultant who I believe is one of the best Facebook marketers in the world. And I raised my hand to learn how to, punch the keyboard and actually run ads. Fell in love with it, started learning the funnel side, the CRM side, started learning other platforms, started consulting, ended up taking my VP of marketing job, the company I was working for, and rolling them over as a client. And it was off to the races at that point.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's really cool. The first client, I always like to hear the first client story. And that's
Yeah.
a
They were
pretty
the
good.
fourth, actually. I
Oh,
already,
really?
I was in a position where I could have stepped out. My income as a consultant with other brands surpassed what I was, my VP of marketing role. But it made sense, and we've still got a great relationship to this day.
Wow, that's really neat. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you share the best Facebook consultant in the?
Oh yeah, no, Brad Bearden, I love him. He's still a mentor of mine.
Yeah,
He is he's a stud. He's a stud.
yeah, yeah. Check that out.
I'll send him a link to this when it goes live. He'll definitely
That'd
listen.
be awesome because
I would
it's
have
really
anyway. Yeah.
yeah, it's always cool to hear. Like, I think that I had almost a reverse experience, right? I started an agency and I co-founded some e-commerce company and felt like I learned a lot, but wanted to learn more. So I actually got a job at a big direct response company that I had done some funnel work for. I said, my agency runs without me. Why don't I go and work for you guys? Like, it's a pay cut, but the agency will bring in the money whether I'm there or not. And it's amazing what you can really learn from the best. Like,
Yeah.
it's disproportionate what you can learn from
It's insane. I mean, I spent 6 months shoulder to shoulder with this guy, and really realized that I had this sort of intellectual property. It was. I mean, I love that. Like thinking back to that season of transformation, and I signed clients, ended up signing clients. None of them were based in Birmingham. Birmingham's on the Central Time Zone. I signed two out in Los Angeles, right, West Coast time. I signed one in Miami, East Coast, So I was working just an insane amount of hours because, during the day I was at my VP of marketing role, but in the mornings I would arrange calls with the company in Miami because they were an hour ahead. And then after I was finished with work, the companies I was consulting with in LA, I'd be arranging calls with them and going through strategies. And so it was crazy. And I overpromised, but I didn't want to underdeliver. So what happened was I, got in bed with some of these bigger brands, consulting, and ended up just having to figure it out. It was the first time in my life I remember going, I can't blame this on anyone. Like I remember one night I was working on a CRM project for my client in Miami, and everything got erased. And it was like a whole entire night of work. And you look around and there's no, like, it's on you, and you've got a deadline and you've got to get it done. And I did, but it was a hard lesson to learn at the time.
Ooh, that's like I don't know.
Chills run down my spine.
Yeah, I would say I think we've all had like some moment like that. I remember I had a 3 a.m. sales letter where I was like doing direct response in school, and man, some of those ones you're like, all right, I just know that I've got to push it for this one, and hopefully I won't have to do it much anymore, which is true. But gosh,
Yeah.
I think it's easy to forget that there's two extremes that sometimes people run to is either they say, oh, well, that's the life of an entrepreneur and that's what it should be like forever. Or they say, I'm never going to do that and I'm not going to pay the dues. It's like,
Right.
well, you got to pay some dues, but it probably shouldn't be. I imagine you don't have a ton of nights where you erase everything in the CRM.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still pull an all nighter here and there, but it's by choice, and it's not because of a sense of urgency or need. More so, I just like the quiet,
That's
you know,
fair.
and when it makes sense, and there's no emails coming in, your phone's not ringing, and sometimes I can get in this great workflow. I know it's not healthy, but I feel like there's other benefits to it, and so I enjoy that kind of quiet and being able to just focus and not worry about any sort of distractions.
Yeah, no judgment from me. I definitely prefer late nights. I got married in January and my wife
Oh,
is not.
congratulations!
Thank
Yeah,
you. And so that means I don't do as many late nights anymore.
no doubt, no doubt. Well, I have my daughters every other week. I share time with their mom, so we have them 1 week on, 1 week off. So when I don't have them, that's more so when I'll do stuff like that. But then I can
Yeah,
go to sleep and sleep in afterwards or whatever. So
yeah,
it,
that makes total
it
sense.
works that way. Yeah.
Okay, so you started VP of marketing, big franchise, amazing Facebook mentor comes in. You're like, I like this. I have the intellectual property now that I can offer this to other people, and I think I would enjoy it more because it's more like a trade, and let's be real, it's a dopamine rush. Like you run some ads, you try it out, you see what works. It is still the most fun. Where I'm just always looking for reasons to run ads.
Well, I tell people I don't know that if I'm as good as I think I am at what I do. It's more so my competitive nature, my drive,
Sure.
right? And it's like I'm going to win, and I'm going to get the results, and I'm going to do what it takes to get there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was the next step? Because honestly, you were one of the people that I think you're the first person I've talked to on this podcast, at least. Where you scaled up quickly to 7 figures, right? And
Yep.
then you said, "Hey, man, this is the part of the story that I'm so curious about. What happened next?"
Yeah. So it was a wild ride for sure. So started in 2017. First 12 months hit 1.2 million annual recurring revenue. I mean, it just took off like a rocket ship that you're putting together as it's soaring through the stratosphere. And we got up to 12 full time people or so, and they were contract employees, but paid full time and had dedicated office space, all of that. And I realized kind of the more people I brought on, it's not that they weren't great. I mean, I feel like I had a great team. I'm not the delegator type. I'm the lead by example, and I'm a workhorse, right? And so there's that, and I didn't have that structure where there was another leader or partner to kind of take on that role. But two, it was just I just continued to work more. I never saw with performance and conversion rate optimization, it was just incredibly challenging to scale. We built some marketing products. We tried to, but they were in the medical verticals. Doctors can be challenging to work with, and clinics and things like that. So the profitability was great, but it just wasn't. I was exhausted. So by 2019, in June, I actually raised about $500,000, about $500,000 in funding, and built a technology product over the next year. I kept Apex going, but I had wound it down considerably, and we were going for our second raise of 2 million with a group out of North Carolina, and the lockdown hit. Everybody pulled out. No one was investing at that point, and so then I started kind of winding Apex back up. but keeping it at a more reasonable sort of reasonable, well, at least where my time would be a reasonable amount of hours worked, right? And I realized, with the pandemic, it caused this forced kind of break, right? And I think as a father, I'm going to look back very fondly on that time because I could have still gone to my office. I could have, but I moved all my stuff home, and I ended up spending a lot of time with my daughters that I had missed those first couple of years building that business. And I was like, I'm never going to sacrifice this again. And my girls are 9 and 6, or about to be 9 and 6. And now their mother and I we've parted ways. We got divorced a year ago, and I have them 50-50. And so they trust me. I built that equity with them, and I was able to rebuild that during that time. And so I work my schedule. There's kind of sort of where I want the company to be at, where I want monthly revenue or my income and the revenue to be at, and the value that can be provided to our clients. But then how much time I do everything when I have my daughters, right? Take them to school, pick them up, make their lunches, make dinner, all that stuff. And so there's just a balance there. So scaling back and staying at sort of below 7 figures made more sense because I about killed myself with what I do getting there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting to see like the different types, right? Where there's different kinds of agency owners. There's a person who's like, I just am a strategic, big picture. I stay back and we strategize, and then everybody else tackles the in the weed stuff. And there's folks a little bit more like you, which I mean, honestly, sometimes I wonder, like, do you? And this is a random question, but do you think that your dream job is to be a consultant that just, if you could just be a really high paid consultant and just work with more valuable clients, is that more of the thing? Or is it like you like the agency, the idea of productizing, making it a system?
Yeah, it's interesting. That's a great question. So, like when I was consulting in the early days, and sort of branched out and got my own office space and everything. Again, still just me, but I had a dedicated space at this point. Um, I had this kind of decision because I was leading these business workshops and trainings, right? Where they were $10,000 a day. These businesses would pay me to come in and do a training, and that was going really well. But I was trying to work myself out of the equation. I was trying to figure out the scale factor, right? And so I went with the agency route because I didn't call it the Corbitt Chandler agency. It was Apex Current, still is, right? Because I wanted to build something, and I wanted to build something that brought a legacy, but also that had value without me being part of that equation. The reality is that wasn't the case. I was still the Mickey Mouse. I was still doing the brunt force of the workload because you just can't. Again, we talked about the day trading, and if those ads are getting changed, if somebody's got ads running on holidays or something like that, some sort of promotion, I can't ask somebody to change those. That's on me, right? On the performance side. And again, if it's not returning for the client, you have to switch the assets out and figure out how to make it work. And so yeah, you asked that. Yeah, so now I've still got the agency. I've got a few people, and I've got it at a certain level, but I'm also looking at scale and courses, coaching more, and doing things like that, productizing a few aspects of what I do.
Yeah, no, it's interesting because there's like not a right or wrong answer. Right? It's
Sure.
like
Yeah. No doubt.
whatever the thing is.
I'll tell you what I'm not though. I did through this process. I'm not a tech startup guy. I learned that
Yeah,
real quick. I mean, almost fell into depression, like raise funding, and the first 60 days, it was so quiet, right? I had wound down my agency. I'd rolled clients over to like, Brad picked up some of my clients, my mentor that I mentioned. And, so got them in a good place, but it was just, you weren't getting the calls, I wasn't selling and all that business development. And, that's just about killed my soul. I was like this, and I thought the idea and the concept was great, and still think it would have been something that was huge, but that just is not me. Yeah.
no, and I feel like you don't know those things until you try them out.
No, you don't.
Where
You
it's
don't.
like it's just a valuable experience that if you ever an agency for a tech startup, you're going to know what they're talking about.
Right. Right. No doubt.
Yeah, you've been there. It's also interesting to think about that question. Like you said something that struck me where you mentioned that when you started, you said, I don't want this to be a Corbitt agency. Right? I want this to be something that I build. There's a little bit of legacy. And I experienced something similar. Sometimes I feel like it's not until we're forced out of it. Like for me, I was going to school. I got my 4-year degree in 8 years. I was on the accelerated path.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Only failed out once, but the other stuff, it just took me a little while. Right? And The interesting thing though was it wasn't until I was doing a year of mission in Chile where I was like, I got to figure out how to make this agency run without me because I can't change ads in on
Sure.
Christmas Day, right? And it would be really interesting to hear your journey. Just like it sounds like you got great priorities. Like, yeah, daughters first. This
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
is a really exciting thing to work on, but not as exciting as my daughter's life.
100%. They were always the priority. The family
Yeah,
was, just to be clear, because even when I was working those crazy hours, it was, they were feeling the reward of that growth. Right.
yeah,
And I know now I understand that it's, they want me, and I'm not willing to give that up time with me. But in my mind, well, if I go back, I thought I was doing it for them. And there was a whole charitable aspect to us giving and figuring out where we're going to donate. And so anyways, but yeah, these days, again, I'm trying to press less buttons when and if I can, but I still do. Whether it was anything I've done, 80% of the revenue has always been generated through my own digital marketing. Right. So when I jump off with you, I'm working on a campaign right now for some of the course stuff I mentioned earlier.
yeah.
And so I run those ads, and I can punch the gas pedal at any time to pick up clients. Where what you're talking about is, if I'm bringing on a client that's in a new space, it's an unknown sort of territory, niche, whatever. That's when that learning process starts. If I pick up clients in a similar industry, I know there's overlap and things like that, best practices, key learnings that I can carry over. But it really is a process with a new vertical. You got to figure it out. You've got some assumptions, and again, best practices you can kind of bake into what you're doing, but it's a new domain. And it typically it's only the first 2 to 3 months with a client that crazy sort of amount of hours and work goes in, and then we'll find it. Given the time, about 8 weeks in, that's when you get to sort of more rinse and repeat formula. Yeah,
This is a question that like came up for me. I don't remember who
sure.
posted or what it came up, but it would if you had a team member that would tackle that side of things, like would you rather have a team member that does all the new learning or would you miss it too much?
I'd miss it. So I always, my idea in my head is kind of chief opportunity officer. If you had to give me a title, right? I don't know what you like. If Apex had grown to this 100-person agency, right? I didn't want to be the person leading it and running it. I wanted to kind of be in my workshop by myself, doing my thing, looking for opportunity,
Yeah,
right?
preach, preach. I'm with you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. And so that's what I love to do. And so yeah, the competitive side of that, and yeah, for sure, I think that I always want to try to be involved somehow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's like the tinkering because I found myself in a really similar place where I got back and it was embarrassing, but I left for a year. My agency was more profitable while I was gone than while I was here.
That's
And
insane. That's
it
great
was
though.
just like I just didn't mess with stuff, right? Like I was gone and they could just run the processes that were working, and I wasn't here to mess with stuff. And it was kind of humbling because you think like I make stuff happen, I'm actually helpful, and you go, wow, I'm not actually that helpful.
Yeah.
And more like I extracted myself and just yeah, I can appreciate that vibe, right? Because
Yeah.
I want to work on fun new things.
Oh, for sure. My staff would call me the mad scientist because I'd get in before anybody else. I'd be in the office, door would be closed. I might come out a little bit, and then I'd come out at the end of the day and be like, "We're about to test this and show it to
Yeah,
everybody." Let's
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
this is, I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm similar in this, and I think like I'm not a good leader
oh, for sure, for sure.
that inspires like steadiness, and I got good long term vision, but not a great option for just
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely like, yeah. It sounds like there's a lot of like, my. Have you ever heard of Culture Index? It's a personality or profile.
yeah. I haven't taken the
Yes,
test.
I'm a trailblazer, and so it's a visionary profile. But we're not at 50,000 feet. We're more at like 10, 20, and we're moving really fast. And so it's hard for people to keep up, and it's hard to slow down to try to take them along with you.
Yeah, no, that's a great way to put it. And it's just, and it's like, wow, it's an exciting place to be. And I think the other problem that I'll see sometimes is people try to change that about themselves, where they go,
Sure.
I'm a trailblazer, but I should be an admiral or whatever
Right.
it
Right.
is
Right.
that,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
they look at it and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, very consistent. They're always like looking at they're getting the slowest person up with them. And Yeah, it was really freeing to step away from it and say, hey, I'm going to have a CEO now, and I'm not going to do that, and I'm going to offer
Sure.
this. Yeah, I can appreciate that.
I feel like, and just to your point, that's what one of the reasons we implemented Culture Index. I like Enneagram as well, if you've heard of that one. Figuring out how to get the right people in the right seats on the bus,
Yeah,
and certainly play to their strengths. You can't. It's like if 80% of the time they can do things that they're are well suited to take care of whatever that job function is. That's great. They're always going to have some stuff that they're probably not going to want to do. It just is what it is. Everybody does. I don't want to do. I thought for a long time I could outrun my P&L and finances, finance, and all that, but now it's like there's 20% of the time it's like it's devoted to that stuff.
yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, that's very true. Um, wow, we could go down a P&L tangent. So I'm
Yeah.
avoiding it. I'm holding myself back. So right now, what are you guys working on at Apex? Like, I feel like every agency owner has always got a constraint that they're working on in this moment.
What do
And
you
what
what
do
do you
you
mean by constraint? Sorry to I interrupted you, but
Yeah, no, that's really quick. Where you say, okay, here's the next step in Apex's growth. Oftentimes, we got a clear vision of where we want to go. I'm like, I know where I want Whiteboard needs to go, but there's something that's holding it back. Right? I can do the spreadsheet math. I can figure out what I want to do to get us there. But there's for us, right? It's that we have a small universe. We sell to enterprise company, $100 million and above that are marketing directors and above. There's 300,000 of those people, and we do cold outreach to a lot of them. And so the conversion rates are so low on the outreach; it's very profitable. But we would need like 3 million to get to a $30 million a year company.
right, right,
And
right.
so that's just unless they start having more marketing director babies, and then like nope, birthing them right there, ready to go, we got a problem. And
Sure.
so that's like my big constraint is higher lead efficiency.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that makes sense.
it's just always interesting to hear what you know where you want to go. What's the thing that you're working on? Crack.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, there is an opportunity. We talked about this before jumping on, and I'm not sure if we've talked about it while we're recording, but as I mentioned, so I'm the subject matter expert for the SBA on digital marketing, right? Their Thrive program. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so there's a lot of small business owners in every state that I'm training and helping to learn digital marketing and how to implement that for their businesses, but they're coming to me to get help, right? And so there is this sort of baked in opportunity that's happening. It's organic to the process of them becoming clients. And I'm looking at scaling things back up, but how I continue to do that and the right people, right? That's always the people problem, right? But bringing the right people on, and I'm getting that sort of infrastructure in place now to do what I've done before and go even past that, but never as far as my time goes and sacrificing that time up. And that's how I look at things now. It's just, do I get to kind of live the lifestyle that I want to live for me and my daughters and spend that time with them? And I have I've always been used in the marketing. So again, we would run our own ads to grow the agency, still do. I'm the Mickey Mouse doing the song and dance on the videos, right? The only reason that's the case is because it works. It just happens to work. We tested other people. I was, I'm not, I'm agnostic to it. It's like, so anyways, but it's always been me. But now as the agency, the service side builds back up, I do want to try to productize the coaching and course side of things. And stepping out into just Corbitt Chandler and using my name to do that and influence and experience. It's not comfortable for me. But I ultimately am trying to swallow sort of that part of things and just look, this is actually going to help businesses. You're bringing value, right? And that's what it's about. And there's a lot of scale here, and it's allowing you to do the things you want to do with your time, right? As opposed to the service side. So yeah, I guess I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of all that's going on in my head right now.
Well, I'll tell you what I heard. You tell me what I get right. So there's almost like a two-pronged attack. The last thing first is that you're looking at doing coaching courses. Where you're saying, hey, this is a way that I can, help people in a more scalable way. Maybe you could say that it doesn't require punching on the keyboard quite as much.
Or that can't afford our services, et cetera. Yeah.
Oh, that's a great point too. Yeah, can't afford it. And so it's like we've got a wider net of businesses that we know we can serve with this. And hey, got a great face for video. Some of us have face for podcasts. You got a great face for video. It'll be perfect.
I appreciate it.
And then on the agency side, it's a question of how do we scale back up without losing the freedom that you've built. when you scale back. Is that more or less
That's
fair?
it. No, you said it, much more eloquently and concise than I did. But yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, those are hard. Those are both. And it's interesting because we're in the same spot for the coaching stuff, right? I looked at it. Mine was a little bit of a different angle where I just thought I love agency owners. I like talking to them. I want to buy another agency. I want to just like start doing some coaching for them, and that's how agency happens. Right?
Okay.
And that's where we say, hey, we got our agency here. Do you want some help doing it? It'll shortcut your process because it kind of sucks if you're really banging your head against it, right?
Sure.
And so you're flipped on it. You're like, hey, I know I can do this coaching stuff, and or do you already do coaching courses, or is that a new thing?
Yeah. No, I've had them, but I haven't ever, you know, I haven't really invested in them like I would need to really get exposure and to grow them into something that's actually. There's there are people that are that have paid for the course that are in the models, their subscription models, but
Yeah,
it's just always been an afterthought, and now
yeah.
it's more a priority. Yeah.
You haven't turned down the ad magic, is what I'm
Yeah, no, I'll never. I don't know that I'll ever turn it down. That's like again, I'm chomping at the bit, and I'm enjoying our time. And but when I jump off, I'm going to be running ads for something else I'm working on. So it's just
Yeah, that's super fun. Yeah, that's cool. Well, so going in, you got those two problem sections. Let's focus a little bit on that, getting the agency scaled up question. What resources do you use to learn? Because I feel like a big value this show brings is we get to hear where other people are learning how to solve that problem. So, yeah, are you reading books? Are you listening to podcasts? Hopefully, so. Are you
all of
watching?
it. Yeah, no, I will now. But no, I consume a ton of information. So actually, this was working at the franchise brand. We would listen to podcasts in the car, and we called it Automobile University.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, that's fun.
Phrase, but that so I still do that to this day, and it can be stuff that's just I'm interested in. A lot of times it's based on the industry and trade, and other than that, I'm consuming a ton of information constantly, and it's like you're the average of your five closest friends, right? And so I'm trying to I always want to be around and surround myself with people who are much smarter than me and brilliant and learn from them, right? Just like however I can rub foreheads together and get little nuggets of information and so that that's what I try to do. I couldn't as far as like formally sitting down and reading books, I love reading. I don't do it as much as I used to, but because I'm busy. So but I'm consuming information online constantly, and it's like wherever the interest is or the need is or what I'm trying to learn. I'll pay for courses, I'll pay for inner circles, and I do that stuff because it forces me to push myself and to have accountability and to grow. So
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And I think it's also interesting. I have like a little informal tally going on people that are entrepreneurs and how likely they are to invest in other courses.
yeah,
And generally, the ones that seem to be making a lot of progress are people who are like, yep, I invest, I try out new stuff. If you're going to recommend one resource for other agency owners on either growing your agency or systemizing it more, whatever, what would that be? Because we just like to get the name out for other stuff.
yeah. So as far as like a tool or a coaching course or like
Any of the above. Just something useful where you're like, this is the one thing you really need to check. It
hmm,
could be a 100K
question.
mastermind, could be a
Yeah, yeah.
$100 course or something.
That's a great question. Well, um, so I would say, so you're familiar with ClickFunnels, I'm assuming. Yeah. So
Everyone's
anything
trust
with
that.
Russell, what's that?
I said they have some comma awards or something.
Yeah, two comma award, all that sort of stuff. So, but Russell Brunson, who founded it, I would say follow him on social media, look up his YouTube videos. Actually, if you're starting a business or trying to sell a product or a service, there's a 7-minute video on YouTube of Russell Brunson talking about why it's so important that your product has a story, but basically tells you how to do it because it has to do with working your personal brand into the purpose and the reason for why you're selling a product. But anyways, he's just always active, and I don't go to conferences and events and things like that, but I consume the content he puts out. He puts out a lot of good content. But there's a ton of people. I mean, Dan Kennedy, you talked about direct response, get No BS brand building. One of his books, pick it up. Russell Brunson has what is it, Internet Secrets, his book, and yeah, there's a lot of great guys. Justin Lofton, I can't just name one. Ryan Dice. trying to think who else. Brad Bearden. I don't think he has anything anybody can pick up though. He's keeping it close to the vest. Um, my mentor. And there's one other that I try to follow. I can't think of his. Oh, Jason Hornig.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I mean, it's, and a lot of times, again, I'll sit through things and either I've learned it before or know it, but it's like the 20% rule. I pick up things and I'm like, and that little piece that you pick up is a golden nugget. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of times. Yeah.
no, totally with you.
Have somebody to chase, whether it's Tony Robbins, God, I'm losing, my train of thought, but, I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Well, anybody that I just mentioned, looking at what they're doing, they're all running ads, they're all running marketing, and you can go in the Facebook ad library. Google has an ad library. You can look at the ads and the landing pages and reverse engineer that sort of strategy. And I do that a lot for myself and clients. Yeah.
No, that's actually, I mean, I think you just hit on the last thing that is probably one of the places where you get the most truth. Where if you look, it's like, you want to know if their ads are profitable, see how long they've been running it for.
Yeah.
And depending on the vertical, right? Some verticals can afford to lose more money than others or whatever. But
Nike or some big brand, they just dump money
yeah,
in reach impressions. Yeah. Yeah.
but a lot of these folks, like, you can learn so much from just what they're doing. So
100%.
thanks for bringing that one up. I
Yeah, of
don't know if
course.
that's been mentioned, but that's a really good
I don't have, like, I can sniff out opportunity. That's just kind of a natural sort of, that's innate to my sort of core, but I don't have that raw ingenuity that some people have. It's rare, like a Steve Jobs, like just invent something out of air. But I learned through reverse engineering,
one.
swipe and deploy what other people are doing. I'm not trying to copy or rip off. It's not even used for the same purpose a lot of times, but it's like, what can I take from that and put over here to make it work?
Yeah, amen, bro. That's a powerful technique, and I think there's a lot of I don't know. There's a certain grace that comes, right? It's like steal like an artist, and
Yeah,
it's a real shared creativity that comes. So
100%.
wow. Well, Corbett, if people want to get in touch with you, if they say, "Wow, this was an excellent episode," and I need some help in my business, or I just want to
Sure.
think about this guy's courses, how would they find you?
Well, so I'm going to, I'll plug my personal website, CorbittChandler.com. So Corbitt, Corbitt, Chandler.com. That'd be the first place. Kind of that's being revamped for some stuff we've been talking about. And then Apex Current, my agency site, apexcurrent.com. Check it out as well. And then on social media, Instagram at Corbitt Chandler. I'm not a Twitter guy, but I'm on Facebook as well. But Instagram is kind of the only social media that if I'm active, that's where I'm active.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. I'm the reverse. I'm a Twitter guy. Like,
Okay.
I'm really active and not.
I play college football, but I'm not into sports, and I feel like it's either celebrity stuff or people that are into sports are on Twitter, so anyway,
Corbett, we just got to get you the right ones. There's some fascinating accounts.
I bet.
I feel like I just follow like small business Twitter of like people buying other businesses or something.
Well, maybe you can send me some after this. You'll get me on board.
It's sweet. We'll get on it.
Awesome.
Well, everybody, thanks for listening. I realized I forgot the mid-roll commercial, so I'll just throw it in now. Usually I do my mid-roll, but yeah, Corbett, thanks so much for coming on. It was a joy to have you. I really appreciate the priorities that you showed in your life and the way that you've woven that into your whole journey. So
absolutely, Lance. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it, man. Really enjoyed it.
Great guest.
Take care.